Abby Bailey, April 29th, communications class, persuasive speech. If you'll please show my audience. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. The treatment of the elderly has become a situation both socially and economically due to the rising cost of health care and the decline in Social Security funding. It's creating a situation in the coming years that needs immediate attention. As a society, we need to come up with more creative ways to solve the aging population's housing, financial, and healthcare problems, while trying to bridge the gap with the generations to bring community and a celebration to old age so that no one faces their own mortality alone. The baby boom generation are those born between 1946 and 1964, and according to the Population Reference Bureau, will grow from 52 million Americans in 2018 to 95 million Americans in 2060. You can see from this map, the black dots represent 1,100 people per capita. So if you can imagine this almost doubling, it's a lot of people. According to seniorliving.org, the life expectancy has increased to 78 years for the average person. And if you live to be 80, you more than likely will live another 8 to 10 years from that. So you can see someone who is retired at 65 and lives to be in their 90s. Unfortunately, a lot of people are getting to that age and they've run out of money. Between the life expectancy age increasing, one of the largest generations aging, and the Social Security funds diminishing, we need to find new ways of evaluating, valuing, and interacting with the elderly. Today I'm going to tell you a story about two women, both born in 1928, lived during the same time periods, and who died in completely different circumstances 5 months apart. The first one is my grandmother, Miss Thelma. Today is actually her birthday, I just realized. She passed December 7th, 2019, and she died surrounded by family, and her memorial was a celebration of life with families and friends and people that went all the way back to her when her kids were little, their friends that she welcomed. She taught me some of life's lessons that I still remember and pass on to my kids. Being born during the Depression, she never threw anything away, including people. She offered me wisdom, which is something the elderly can bring to the generations. Modern ideas like repurpose, revalue, reuse. She had well established that concept. She never did we ever have to look for a takeout container or any kind of material for school projects. She saved everything. The elderly can remember historical events and help to explain the purpose in ways that parents sometimes don't have in their life yet. Her father died when she was relatively young. My mom had both parents, but when my birth father died, she was able to offer me some wisdom and counseling that my mom didn't have. She couldn't stand lying. She said the truth always came out anyway, and the value of telling the truth far outweighed any consequences. So, and in that sense, the elderly can instill morals and life lessons into the younger generations. The elderly are a valued component to society by being able to remind future generations of the mistakes of the past generations. My grandmother survived the Dust Bowl. She knew a thing or two about gardening and soil rotation. She always put her family first. Her table was always spread for anyone who needed a meal, family, friends of family. She always offered what she had without any reciprocation required, open freely, without any strings attached. Her generation placed a higher value on community, and surviving the Great Depression, they were a pretty generous group of people. She always was. She didn't have any modern conveniences. She never owned a computer or a smartphone, so she understood the value of a shared meal and conversation. And honestly, I think that's something that could use a refreshing in this society today. They can offer wisdom from their life experiences, like I've already said, stability in relationships, and they have time to give to other generations that working generations, especially with two parents, a lot of times don't have. Socialization for the elderly, according to Bethesda Health, improves their mental health, their physical and nutritional health, and gives them a sense of purpose. Bethesda Health also cites that 7 million or more seniors or elderly over 65 are fighting some form of depression due to isolation and the lack of sense of purpose. Senior Living cites the leading cause of death in America's over 65 is due to falls. Communities that integrate and strengthen relationships with their elderly can resolve several of those issues simultaneously. Stanford University in 2016 shared seniors fulfilling mental roles strengthened the community and brought positive exchange between multiple generations. Children with no caregivers after school could check on an elderly neighbor, perhaps share a snack, recap the day's events, put a puzzle together, play a game. A tired and frustrated mom who needs some wisdom about parenting could invite a elderly neighbor for a walk, or perhaps to swing on her front porch. Bringing community to the region or to the area, the whole neighborhood, in that exchange that gives value to both sides. A young father who has no memory of his own father might ask the elderly person walking down the street to get his paper every day in for a cup of coffee. Perhaps they could have a game of Scrabble on the weekend, play some cards. All of a sudden, life events, past, fresh perspective on historical events. It all brings unity and strength to the community. The rising cost of healthcare and housing is leaving many seniors in a desperate situation. According to healthcare.com in 2016, seniors spend anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000 out of pocket annually on their healthcare. As a society, if we don't find ways to combine these issues between the generations to include the growing aging generation of baby boomers, we are going to be faced with some really huge financial problems in the future, in the immediate future in this nation. Other countries are exploring ideas of shared housing for college students and aging populace. In an article published in January 2019, Curve.com, that 40% of Ontario's housing was in elderly homes. 40% unused space. In June 2019, U.S. News World Report reported that the average Social Security was a monthly $1,471 for seniors over 65. In most cities, that's just about rent. Perhaps a senior house sharing or a room renting program with a college student or a single mom and an elderly person would resolve some housing situation crisis for both. The emotional benefits and the sense of purpose that it would bring to a senior would also help the cost of healthcare, depression, medications, long-term care due to a fall, injury. It would solve a lot of issues for an elderly person all in one thing. According to the last census, Tennessee has an elderly population over 39% with at least one disability. Now, disability can be due to aging, simply loss of hearing, loss of eyesight, diminished physical ability. It's considered a disability. Some falls lead to a disability. Something a community can help just by decluttering a house, helping with errands and housework. A community that helps the elderly with those types of things, they're decreasing the tax dollars that's spent due to injuries from falls, long-term health care costs, and instilling a work ethic and accountability into the next generation. This is from the census. This is the percentage in the blue of the population, 25% over 65. And then this is the percentage with disability. You can see the blue areas get a lot bigger. At the beginning, I told you I would tell you about two women born the same year, but so far I've only talked about one. The other woman was named Elsie. Elsie just passed April 7th of 2020. She died alone in an assisted living facility. Her husband had passed many years ago. Her son had passed as well. No one left to claim her. The only ones to clean out her apartment and to know anything about her beautiful life were the nurses at the facility. I hope that you can determine from the evidence and the examples that I have given you the financial and the cultural benefits of embracing and celebrating the treatment of elderly in our society. And I hope that you have a longing to get to know someone that's over 65 if you don't already. I hope that no one will die alone and be forgotten. And I hope that we will strive to instill the next generation a value for people beyond what they can see with their outward appearance. And maybe those hopes are a little high. Maybe I'm a little far-reaching in my goals. But if my grandmother taught me anything, she taught me you never throw anything away, including people.